Well, good morning. Welcome to another workflow devotion with Darrell and Arlene. I pray that you had a wonderful weekend, that God is still up to what God does best, which is blessing you and everything that's in your life, your family, and everyone that's around. Good morning to Pastor Roberts, who I see has come on with us. Today we're going to talk about a subject that is dear to my heart, that's also dear to the hearts of many within our country and in others. We're still in the book of Corinthians, still in the first chapter, still in the first book of Corinthians, First Corinthians, and now we're in the seventh chapter. Now, the seventh chapter of Corinthians is sort of a hard chapter for some people. Welcome to Miss Phillips and also my old teammate Percy, who's here. Because of the fact that Paul now starts to talk about a subject that a lot of people have issues with, and that subject is the subject of marriage. Well, we find now in today's society, only about 30% of our young people from the age of 18 to 39 are getting married. Only 30%. Back when I was in college, that same group from 18 to 39, that percentage was up around 59% of those that literally got married. They went to school, we went to school, we prepared ourselves to work, we prepared ourselves for the job market, but we also prepared ourselves for marriage. Now, that does not mean that we did it the right way all the time. Does not mean that we did not make some mistakes, but we prepared ourselves for marriage. But today, we find ourselves in a position where it's so easy, or it's acceptable to just go and have and start families without marriage, without the commitment of marriage. But marriage was a commitment that had been put together by God long, long ago. You know, when Jesus, or when I say Jesus, God, Jesus being his son, when God created man and God formed man and breathed life into man, God then took out of man a spouse that would be with man so that the two of them could help populate this world. So we find Adam and Eve. But Eve came out of man. Man did not come out of Eve. But look at this. Though Eve came out of man, from that time forth, man came out of Eve. It's such a blessing when you think about the sanctity of marriage and what marriage is all about. Marriage is more than two people loving each other, coming together, and producing a family. Marriage is so much more than that. Marriage is that coming together of two that become or form one. And this is what Paul is sort of talking about to the Corinthian church. They're still having issues. They're having issues just like we have issues. Their issues that exist is around the fact that the culture that they live in says it's okay to do certain things. It's okay to have these extramarital affairs. It's okay for men to go out and to solicit women as long as they pay for it. This is the society that they lived in. If you think about it, it almost sounds like the society that we live in today. So many have decided that it's up to me how I want to live my life. It's up to me how I want to raise my kids. It's up to me what I decide to do when it comes to marriage. And therefore, our younger people now do not view marriage on the same level as we used to. And that is in itself an issue. So Paul now is in chapter 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. He has received some information that has been brought to him. And the information that has been brought to him is asking the question, what should we do about this issue of marriage? And now Paul has to sit down and address this issue. Now Paul who had not been married, Paul, as far as we know, Paul who was never ever married, as far as we know, now must approach a church and tell them about something that he's really not that familiar with. Though he says, I have the Spirit of God within me that will guide me, he literally now has to answer this question that was given to him from the Corinthian church. Paul, the people want to do right, but the culture that we've been raised in has taught us differently. Now, what should we do? Well, Paul now has to address this issue. That issue doesn't seem far from where we are today. A lot of the younger couples now feel like marriage is a waste of time because the divorce rates are so high. Because divorces come on a regular basis, now we find people that literally look at marriage as like trying out a new car. I have so many days to try that car out, and if it doesn't work like I want it to, I'll trade it in for another. A lot of us approach marriage in that same concept. We think that marriage is just a way of trying that person out for a period of time. And if it works, then fine. If it's not quite what I think it should be, then, that's why they made divorce. And divorce goes way back, all the way back to Moses. And that was brought up in Matthew's and Luke, that Jesus literally was asked about that very thing, about divorce. So now, marriage is a sanctity that was created by God. And now the Corinthian people, this Corinthian church, now has some questions about that very thing. And how do they handle it? So again, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And Paul starts this part out by answering or addressing this question. He says, now concerning the things whereof that was wrote to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Now this is Paul. This is based on what he is talking about. It's based on him and the decisions that he has made within his own self. We cannot all say that we can literally be like Paul. Everyone was not made the way Paul was made. There are some men and some women that are okay with not being married. But you got to understand what marriage is. But Paul was okay with it. He says that as long as you can uphold yourself, as long as you know how to control yourself, then fine. It's better not to even touch. Why? Well, he gave a couple of reasons. And farther down in here, in that same chapter, he talks about the fact that a person that's married actually thinks about their spouse. Whereas a person that's unmarried, they're constantly thinking about what they can do for the Lord. But as a man of prayer, as a leader in the church, the last thing you want is to have this cloud over top of you, this desire over top of you that is hindering you from being the best that you can be or the best that you can give of yourself to God. He says comparing marriage to a relationship with God himself. But this young church is having issues because of the culture that they live in. In 1 Corinthians 6:16, which we were there last week, who you join yourself with intimately, you marry yourself to, because the two become one. Understand what that meant. It says anyone that you intimately involve yourself with, the intimacy, that act of intimacy itself is the marriage. So then he literally says, then why would you go around marrying yourself to any and everybody? Now, I know you may not agree to that, but if you come on down in that same chapter, you'll find out that Paul talks about it farther down. He literally compares it and he says, you know, if you have a virgin or you are a virgin and you are committed to a woman, that you've committed yourself to her, she's committed herself to you, you're not going out on her, she's not going out on you, but you do not decide to come together in marriage, then he says it's okay. So those that would commit themselves, it's okay. And those that would not commit themselves, it's okay, if they decide they can be under control of themselves. But Paul then says, but if you can't, if you cannot control yourself, then it's better to marry. He says, as a matter of fact, he even goes farther. He says, it's better to marry than to burn. What does that mean? He does not mean the burning sensation inside. He means that hell's fire of burning is the ultimate if you decide that you're going to be doing something that's outside of the will of God. Outside of the will of God, because God had ordained marriage for people to come together, to become one together that will produce another life. We now in our society find ourselves in a position where a lot of our younger people do not believe in the sanctity of marriage, but it's because of divorce rates. It's because of infidelity. It's because of the TV programs that we watch and these reality shows that we watch that shows all the excitement of being an adulterer or the excitement of fornication. But if you think about it, it's only exciting because the devil makes it exciting to you. The flesh desires all that it can receive at any time. And the more the flesh can receive, the more the flesh wants. But the main thing for us is to bring the flesh under subjection. Now, bringing the flesh under subjection, some of the other things that Paul talks about in this very chapter. Now, this is workflow devotion, so I would recommend that you go and you do some studying there. But also what comes up is that when you're involved, when you're married to someone, you have to be extremely careful. There will be issues in your marriage. There will be times when you'll come up against an issue where you're upset with her or she's upset with you, and now you don't want to give in to her and she doesn't want to give in to you. And Paul says you are not in control of your own body. That's where a lot of people have problems. They have problems when you tell me I can't control my body. Both male and females have problems with that. But Paul says the reason you're not in control of your own is because you can cause the possibility of sin to come into your home. And he says, don't give way to sin. Do not allow yourself to be put in a position where now that spouse happens to turn his or her head the other way because of the lack of you giving in to your part. Paul is literally trying to explain to this church through letters that it's important that the two of you, that husband, that wife, come together in holy matrimony the way it was supposed to be done, even in times of trouble. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. But God created the sanctity of marriage for a reason. I say it's a hard pill to swallow, but think about what Jesus did. We didn't always do the right thing, but he still came. We didn't always treat him the way that he should, God, but he still came. When we were out of bounds of the things that he asked us to do, he still came. And if he came, even when we were in our wrong, who are we to say, she did me wrong, he did me wrong, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. But God, Jesus still came. Jesus still died. Jesus still gave his life. Jesus still suffered on that cross so that we could live, so that we could marry, so that we could teach the younger generation that is afraid of marriage now what marriage should be like. So, today's message of marriage and intimacy is literally about the fact that we that are married and we that are thinking about marriage, we need to understand as children of God, as children of the King, as Christ followers, it is our duty to be a couple that will work together so that others may see what God meant for marriage. This is another workflow devotion with Darrell and Arlene. I pray that this will do something for you. If it's not directly for you, maybe for someone else that you are familiar with that's having issues in their marriage. You know, that you need sometimes a counselor just to help you along the way. That counselor that can take you over the barriers that you run yourself into. It's better to go to a counselor and get counseled than to burn. This has been another workflow devotion with Darrell and Arlene. I pray that you have a good afternoon, that your day is prosperous, and that God is continuing to bless you in everything that you're doing. There's strength in marriage. There's strength in enduring to the end. Paul said, I fought a good fight. I finished my course. Now there's a crown waiting on you and I. All we have to do is believe, trust, and let God be God until Wednesday. And it will be going into chapter 8 in 1 Corinthians. I'll see you then. God bless you. Bye.